Well, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, Paul.
Sweet, there's like 3 people that want to wish me Merry Christmas. Let's try that again and pretend you all like it. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, Paul.
I felt that right here. Thank you guys so much. I love Christmas time. This is an awesome time. I don't know how the Christmas season has been for you or has been for your family, because sometimes the Christmas season is filled with with hurt or with grief or mourning, or sometimes it's filled with happiness and anxiety, like all that. And for many of us, or for some of us, it's both those kind of wrapped up together. But for me, I love Christmas, and I love it, especially when I live it through this lens of Advent. When we live it through this lens of Advent, there's this, it's that much more fuller and that much more richer. Advent is a word that means the arrival. And it's a time where we get to, it doesn't just culminate on the 25th. Like tomorrow morning, it's all going to culminate, right? Like you're going to open your gifts, and if you're anything like my kids, it'll be way before the sun is up. But you're going to open gifts, right? And that'll take way longer than it did to wrap them and prepare everything. And maybe it'll culminate there, or maybe for some of us it'll culminate, after evening dinner or whenever it is, right? But it's going to culminate tomorrow, and then it's going to be done. But through the lens of Advent, it lasts that much longer. I mean, through the lens of Advent, we get to celebrate the birth of our hero, who came 2,000-ish years ago to take this upside-down world and flip it right side up. We get to live in the present now of His Spirit expanding His kingdom in the west side as it is in heaven. And then we get to look forward to how our King will come again, how He will ultimately come to make everything new. That's this lens of Advent that I love. And as I was preparing for today and thinking through like Christmas, because I'm buying gifts and doing all the things that we do at Christmas time, I was looking back and listening to the story. I was reading the story through Luke and thinking, we did Christmas like kind of weird. It's a little odd. I mean, maybe you don't agree with me. I'll try to make my case here. This is my our Christmas card that we sent out this year. It's me in the center. It's my wife with the white sweater and or the white scarf, and my sister Nikki, and Abigail and Josiah. And for anybody that's taken a family picture or a Christmas card with a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, then you know exactly just how actually cheery we all were at that moment, right? I mean, look at Josiah's face. That's the best face that we got for that picture, right? And because we don't send out the pictures where Abigail has gone the whole day without a nap. We don't send out those pictures on our Christmas card. I don't send out the pictures where Wendy's been gone for the weekend and the kids and I have been snorting Pixie Sticks and living on fast food. We don't send out those pictures on Christmas time, right? Because Christmas is warm and it's cozy and it's softly lit. We bring in dead trees into our home, and then we wrap them up full of lights, right? And then we decorate them ornately. We have a big feast. We eat like we haven't eaten in like a month, right? We have this giant feast. We take presents and we wrap them up so delicately and nicely. I mean, unless you got a present for me, and that's just kind of messed up ball of paper, right? But we wrap them and we put them underneath the tree. We even hang stockings up with care. When was the last time you didn't just take the socks from a laundry basket and throw them in the general direction of an open dresser drawer? I mean, that might just be me, but we even hang stockings up with care. I mean, it is so, it's a little weird. I mean, consider what we just read in the Luke story compared to this. It has this feeling like maybe we're overcompensating for something. Maybe culturally, maybe subconsciously, in some way. Like we look back at Jesus' birth and we're like, Jesus, I'm so sorry that your birthday kind of sucked. So we're going to do this whole thing over here to kind of make up for it. I mean, picture this, 2,000-ish years ago. There's a young girl, somewhere between the ages of 11 and 14 years old. And she's engaged to a young guy. He's somewhere between the ages of 16 and 18. And they live in this backwards hick part of Israel. Okay, so they speak with an accent. And they live in this place, and the accent they speak, when they meet other people, they all assume, by hearing their accent, that they're unintelligent and uneducated. Because that accent tells us where they live at. You know, we don't have that anymore in the United States, right? But they just assume that that's where they live. And they're impoverished. I mean, poverty. A little bit later on in their lives, Mary and Joseph will give an offering at the temple. And the offering is designed for people who are destitute, who can barely put 2 coins together. That's what it's designed for. That's the best they can offer. It's the best, the most they can afford at the temple. They're impoverished. And yet, they're engaged. Right? And who doesn't love a wedding? I mean, there's this joy before Mary and Joseph. They're engaged. And engagement looked a little bit different than it does for us. I mean, their engagement would have lasted about a year. They're legally married, except they don't get to take part in any of the extracurricular activities that we get to do as married people. And all the married people said amen. And all the single people that are, be quiet, right? But they're legally married, and Mary is at home with her mom, learning what it's like to be a Jewish wife and a good Jewish mom. And Joseph is continuing his trade under his dad. He's also learning what it looks like to be a good Jewish father and a good Jewish husband. And he's building an addition onto the room of his father's house. That's what they did. They built an extra room. So Joseph is building a room, and it takes about a year for that to take place. And after about a year, Joseph goes to his dad. He says, "Dad, I think it's ready." During this whole time, this whole year, every day, Mary takes a candle and puts it in her room, the window outside, or some window in her family's room, and lights it. Just to let everybody know, and let Joseph know, hey, listen, I'm ready. When you're ready, I'm ready. Just this candle to show she's waiting for him. So at the end of the year, Joseph goes to his dad, and his dad says, yeah, go get her, son. And so Joseph, it's midnight. And Joseph comes out of his house, and his friends are there waiting, or he gets his friends. And they begin to sing and play music and dance, and begin to wake everybody up in the village. And they go from house to house. In fact, they take the longest road possible, the windiest road, to wake everybody up in the village first, before they get to Mary's house. But just imagine the anticipation that Mary has, right? Here's the wedding. Here's everything you've been dreaming about. Jewish weddings for the poorest people lasted 3 days. For the poorest people. For the richest, wealthiest, it could be 7 days. 3 to 7 days. I mean, mine lasted, I think, 5 hours, 6 hours, like with the reception, like right around there. Right, but 3 days. Like, all this anticipation. Except all that changed for Mary, right? Because this 12-year-old kid shows up pregnant. There's no wedding photos. There's no bridal shower. There's no bachelorette party. Joseph doesn't have a bachelor party. All this that she's been dreaming of, everything that she has seen as a kid, none of this happens for her. Because this 12-year-old kid shows up pregnant. And oddly enough, nobody believes when she comes up and says, listen, I'm pregnant. I happen to still be a virgin. It's also God's. Oddly enough, nobody believes her story. Right? Even Joseph doesn't believe. It takes an angel talking to Joseph for him to believe Mary's story. All that changes for them. They get none of it. A couple months after, in fact, all they get is shame and rejection from the entire culture. Because Mary is now viewed as an adulterer, or an adulteress, I guess. And Joseph is viewed as less of a Jewish man because he is married to Mary and he's going to father someone else's kid. There's shame on all of them. In fact, the shame continues because we know when Jesus is like 30-ish years old, people bring up, we don't even know who your dad is. Why should we listen to you? It continues on for 30 more years. A couple months after they get married, the empire forces the Jewish people into this registry. So they travel down to Bethlehem to be registered. And they go to Bethlehem because you're supposed to register where your father's line is. And Joseph's father's line is from Bethlehem, and same with Mary's. And so they go there. We've all heard the story. We've all heard the carol, right? Bethlehem is overrun with people. And there's no room for them in the inn, right? Why is that? Remember, where they're going in Bethlehem, it's a small, tiny town. And it is overrun with people. But Joseph's line is there. And Mary's line is there. Which means it's overrun with their parents, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends that they would have been raised with. And they travel to Bethlehem and find themselves homeless. They find themselves with nobody letting them in because of the shame and the guilt that comes upon Mary and Joseph. So they make their way down to this inn. Do you think at this point right here, that Mary felt like she was blessed beyond all other women? Think at any point during this time, Joseph had second thoughts? Think he felt blessed by God? They don't really have inns in the way that we think of inns. They don't really have hotels in the way that we think about them, especially not in Bethlehem. So what it is, it's like they're having to go from room or from house to house looking for an extra room. Just like an extra bed. You have a place for us to stay. Because their family completely rejected them. So just imagine the shame going from door to door. How many doors are slammed in their face? How many doors are just, hey, we don't have a place for you to give birth and to lie here? So they find this place with an extra room. In this extra room, sometimes it's hard for us to picture it a little bit. If you were a first century Jewish family and you had animals, you would have a spare room for your animals. It would be either in the front of the house sometimes or sometimes in the back of the house. It'd be about a half a step down. And it would be there for the animals to come in and to eat or to drink, to get out, from the hot day's sun or to go to sleep, to be for animals to be animals, right? And inside this room, it was usually pretty small, and built into the walls were these feeding troughs and watering troughs, and they were called mangers. So here, in this humble place, is where Mary gives birth to God. I think Mary grew up thinking that she was going to give birth, and the only thing she could place her baby in is a feeding trough for an animal. I mean, just imagine giving birth without, there's no sanitized area, right? Her mom's not there to encourage her, to help her out, because she's clearly had kids before. There's no experienced midwife to help them out. Right? Who's going to clean up? Birth is gross. There's all sorts of things that come out. Who's cleaning that up? What about Joseph? How's he cleaning, or how's he cutting the cord? Is he cutting the cord with his teeth? Is he cutting the cord with a knife? How is this taking place? This isn't the Christmas story that we expect. This isn't the Christmas story even that we want. But this is the story about how God became a zygote, who became a blastocyst, who became an embryo, who became a baby. Christmas flips the tables. It flips the tables. It doesn't gently turn the tables around. It doesn't flip them over gently and then put chairs around it. Christmas comes in and flips the tables upside down. Because nobody expected a 12-year-old girl and a 16-year-old kid, poor people, unbelievably poor, a nobody from Nowheresville, to have the Messiah. Nobody expected that. Nobody expected the Messiah to be born to a girl like her or a guy like him. And nobody wanted it. Nobody expected it and nobody wanted it. What they wanted was for this, for the Messiah to be born and to be born into the right line, under the right parents. What they wanted for the Messiah to be born and he'd be like a warrior. Like the ultimate warrior, right? That's what they wanted. They wanted him to come up with a sword and to go to them and say, listen, you know what? All those guys that have been bad to you, we're going to kill them all. God's wrath and judgment has come upon them. You're right, they're wrong. And now we're going to slay them all. And then we're going to put you in charge of everything. That's what they wanted. That's what they expected. Hundreds of years of rabbis studying the Bible said, this is what we expect. What they wanted and what they expected was for a priest to come. And that priest to say, you know what? You're right. and the way that you worship God, and the way that you understand the theology, you're right. And everybody else are heathens. Let's go judge them all. That's what they wanted. That's what they expected. It's as if they, through hundreds of years of prayer and hundreds of years of understanding, the best they could come up with is we can still fix this. This broken relationship between us and God, we can still make this right. It's as if we thought that we could create a rope long enough that would fix this chasm, that we could climb up to make this right with us with God, or like a ladder sturdy enough that we could climb up to climb up the separation between us and God and make it the way it's supposed to be. This whole time, it's as if we're still striving to be like God. Like we're still striving to attain the power that we were never meant to hold. And that there's no way that we can ever use correctly. But we couldn't become like God. So God became like us. God comes down in the middle of all this. There's this great separation between us and God, this giant chasm, and there's no way for us to do it. As if we could make ourselves clean enough on the outside to make up for the inside. As if I could stop myself from stealing enough that I could make up for the desire to steal inside my heart. But God knew that it doesn't work. This separation between us and God, God knew the only way to make it happen is for Him to come down and to begin to right the world, to take this upside down world and flip it right side up. It's as if we lived in the middle of darkness. In the middle of darkness, there's only this light right here. And then this light is God's light, but it's not meant for us to just come and look at it. It's not meant for us just to come and huddle around and, oh man, that's a really nice light. Boy, I can keep myself warm. It's not meant for any of that. Instead, what it's meant for is for God to light us up. We weren't meant just to huddle around it, but to be lit from the inside. And even in this wasn't meant just for us. This wasn't meant for us just to hold close to ourselves, but it was meant to be shared. It was meant for us to take and go next to the person, to the people next to us. In fact, you may or may not have a candle right underneath your seat right now. But it was meant for us not to go next to the person and have them just huddle around our candle, but for God to light their candle through us. And then it was meant for God, for us to continue that on. You see, this isn't meant for just for Lori to sit here with her candle lit, or for me to sit here with my candle lit, but for me to be used by God to light, and then to light, and then to light. So the expansion of God's kingdom in the west side as it is in heaven comes through God. And yet He uses us to be a part of it. Amen?